Yesterday, December the 26th, marked the 120th anniversary of the birth of former Chinese leader Mao Zedong. In Beijing, large crowds gathered outside Mao's mausoleum at Tiananmen Square to pay their respects. On the official side, a party of top leaders, headed by the current Chinese president, Xi Jinping, attended the annual commemoration ceremony. More effusive celebrations erupted in Mao's hometown of Shaoshan in Hunan province. In this smallish city, now heavily reliant on Mao tourism, there were symposiums to discuss the great helmsman's writings. A new museum dedicated to Mao also opened its doors for the first time. A hugely controversial figure outside China, Mao Zedong is seen very differently within the country. Criticism of Mao would have been unheard of until some years ago. Now, however, critical discussion of his legacy and failings, while still far from encouraged, is not the taboo topic that it once was. In fact, Mao is still idolized by many millions of Chinese for his role in establishing the People's Republic of China, enabling the Chinese people to stand up, as it's often put. But there are also many who lived through the horrors of the anti-rightist campaigns, the Great Leap Forward, during which millions died of starvation, and the disastrous Cultural Revolution, who might not hold such a positive view. So, as the country marks 120 years since his birth, where does online opinion fall on Mao the man and his legacy? Well, let's now join our researcher Esther Dong for some views from Chinese netizens. Now, Esther, how is this hugely important historic figure seen in China almost 40 years after his death then, from what you've seen from online opinion? Do the viewpoints tend to vary quite a lot? Well,
the answer is yes. I've come across a large amount of net users who openly proclaim deep respect and even love towards Mao. This Shanxi-based poster is fairly typical. Without Chairman Mao, there would be no People's Republic of China. And another is on Weibo.com. Mao's thoughts are still useful even today. Even if we're not fighting wars, his theories are applicable to other fields like business. But I have to say, at the same time, there is also much criticism. Many have used the anniversary to draw attention to the Cultural Revolution. That was a movement in the 60s and 70s in which Mao called for violent class struggle to purge New China of what was seen as bourgeois values that were creeping in. 日月星辰 reminds us that during the Cultural Revolution, factories stopped working, students went out of school, everything stopped except for tussles over political power. It's no exaggeration to describe those 10 years as a disaster for China. And during that time, our economy deteriorated, while the economies in South Korea, Japan, and Singapore raced ahead.
Okay, so what then is the difference between the official line on the legacy of Mao Zedong and, say, the public perception as you're seeing it online?
Well, generally speaking, the Chinese authorities' judgment on Mao is that he made some mistakes, but he also made huge contributions to this country. In recent years, a popular phrase to describe Mao is 70% right and 30% wrong, which is actually the official verdict arrived at by the Communist Party some years after his death. And that basically means his achievements and contribution to China outweigh the wrongs he committed. And based on what I've seen online, I'd say the majority of users agree with that. Hunan.com, the official website of China's state-owned Global Times newspaper, carried out a survey asking, do you agree that Mao Zedong's achievements outweigh much more than his mistakes? Over 40,000 posters voted, and more than 70% of them chose yes, I agree. However, another survey on the QQ.com website asked another question which may have influence on those answers. It asked people if they felt they actually know enough about Mao, to which almost 60% answered no.
60% no, 40% yes. Right, but getting back to today and this 120th anniversary, how do net users feel about it? Do they think it's being highlighted officially or is actually being sort of toned down?
Firstly, I like to say that the Chinese reporters have made huge efforts to commemorate the anniversary. Many published various features on the topic. So it's certainly difficult to ignore, and most people are aware of it. But as for how it's being marked, well, plenty of posters do think it's being played down, but not for ideological reasons. And this poster from Baidu.com is quite typical. Chinese authorities called for serious and modest commemorative activities to memorize Mao Zedong. This is actually telling officials not to always shout slogans and waste taxpayers' money, but read and understand Mao's theory and spirit.
Okay, finally, Esther, earlier this week in China Take, actually, we mentioned the debate over that $16 million gold statue of Mao Zedong recently unveiled in the city of Shenzhen. Is that something that's been addressed at all online from what you've seen?
Well, it has been mentioned. In fact, Chinese media have since reported that there are around 225 Mao statues in some 120 cities across China. Not gold, of course, though. But the posters have definitely been calling this particular one out as a waste of taxpayers' money. This net user writes on iphone.com. Such money should be used to improve people's daily lives. But still, it's not all criticism. This last comment is from Liu Fengming, who says, I think such statues are a good idea. It reflects people's love of Mao Zedong, and I suggest rich people donate more money to build more statues of him.
Okay, thanks for that, Esther. And that was China Take researcher Esther Dong with some online reaction there to the 120th commemorations of the birth of former Chinese leader Mao Zedong. Next up on China Take, some of the top trending phrases on China's most popular search engines.